Welcome back, bass lovers, one and all, new subscribers, old subscribers, welcome all of you. This is going to be part 2 of medium running crankbaits. For those of you that didn't watch last week's episode, I suggest you go and have a look. Thanks for joining us, guys. Let's get into it. Now I'm going to try and show you why I say start with the Rapala DT series. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee before we start, guys. So, for the medium running crankbaits, we agreed that it would be from 8 to 15 or 16 foot. In the DT series of crankbaits, there is a crankbait that will cover every single one of those depths specifically. So, ignore the numbers on this map, guys. Let's say that on this map we have, and here you can see the lines are indicated on this map here. We're going to say 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 foot. Each one of those lines represents that. And if you look on any map or any electronic map on your chart plotter or whatever, you will see that very clearly. When you have baits like the DT series of baits where you know that that bait will dive to that depth, that allows you to, when you are running your boat down a bank, say you're running the boat in 10 feet of water and you see there's some rocks on the bottom with fish in 10 feet of water, you tie on a DT10 and you keep your boat parallel to that topographic line and you fire that bait out as far as you can in that 10-foot range either side of that line there, and your boat will show it, your chart plotter will show it to you. You'll be able to physically see it and you will physically see the depth on your sonar. You fire that bait out as far as you can and you are winding directly on that area of that topographic line. If you are running a bank before you are going to fish it, you know if you are a boat length off the bank, it's 10 foot. If you're 2 boat lengths off the bank, it's 14 foot. If you're 4 boat lengths off the bank, it's 20 foot. You'll be able to pick that up very quickly. And having the ability to change baits for those specific depths is the system that I discussed right at the beginning of the video. You can go and target fish in a specific depth of water by tying on a specific bait. Now, I'm not saying that Rapala is the only company that does that. There are many crankbait companies that make baits that run at specific depths. DLNs run up to 12 foot, I think. Then Norman has got a DD14 that on 10 to 12 pound fluorocarbon will run to 14 foot. Then they've got a DD22 that will run to blah, 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 blah. So it makes it easier when you are buying baits. If you know on 10 to 12 pound fluorocarbon, and guys, I'm harping on the fluorocarbon here because I feel it's the best option. On a 7 to 8 foot medium to medium heavy moderate rod, that crankbait will hit the bottom at that depth of water on that thickness of line because you have selected the right crankbait. Okay, now what are we looking for when we're looking for areas to fish the crankbaits? When I said to you at the beginning of the video, you need to have a lure retriever in the boat, I'm not saying it because I want to say it. I'm saying it because if you don't want to lose baits and spend your hard-earned money just buying baits all the time, the lure retriever, once you get the hang of it, you will be able to recover your lures. We've said that the only type of cover that medium running crankbaits don't do well around is thick weed. So for me, when I'm throwing a medium running crankbait, I want this bait to hit whatever it is I can see on my sonar. I want it to hit the rocks on the bottom and the gravel and the clay. I want it to hit that big stump that's lying on the bottom. I want it to hit that sunken rowboat that's lying on the bottom. I want it to nick that brush pile that's in 10 feet of water. So I'm throwing a bait that runs 8 foot and no deeper. So it just nicks the top branches of the brush pile as it goes past. The whole, for me, with crankbaits, and it took me a long time to learn this, the whole, and other than offshore pelagic bait fish, which we'll talk about just now, I want that bait to hit the bottom, or whatever's on the bottom. I want it to hit and deflect. Remember, guys, when you're winding this crankbait in, although it has a wiggle, it generally, and they do track right and left a little bit, it generally comes back to you in a straight line. The direction you are pointing the rod tip is the direction that this bait is going to come back to. You want that bait to hit the bottom and deflect off to one side and then come back to center, or hit that stump and go off to one side and then come back to center. It is that deflection, in my opinion, that will get you the most bites. I am not saying you will not get bit if it doesn't hit stuff. I am saying it is that deflection that will trigger a bass into biting a crankbait better. Okay. Now, we go offshore. And we have some or other species of pelagic baitfish. Let's say it's a shad, so one that looks like a shad. And shad are schooling baitfish. They are pelagic. They generally live off the bank. And those fish, so you've got the surface, 15 foot of water. Bass, 4 foot off the bottom, suspended below this ball of baitfish here in 8 feet of water. Bass are coming up, busting the bait and going back down. You pick a bait that you know, if those are shad or whatever kind of baitfish they are, that will run through that bait ball, maybe go slightly deeper. Say that that bait is now going to run to 12 foot and then start coming back up when it approaches the boat. And you throw it straight through that school of bait, and it goes below that school of bait, and those bass are hanging below that school of bait, and here comes that crankbait, and they will come up and eat the crankbait below the school of bait because they are feeding on that school of bait. You may need to watch this a couple of times to understand what I'm saying, guys, because it is a lot to take in. The different colors of baits and why I need to have that, and blah, 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 blah. And why do I need a blue chartreuse blueback with orange throat? And you don't. You absolutely do not. It's one of those things, and I keep saying it, and it probably drives you all mad. This is a personal choice thing. It's all about what's going to work in your home body of water or the body of water that you are going to go and fish. So you've got to do the homework before you go out and buy the baits. Otherwise, you just end up buying baits, which is also fine. I also like to just go and buy baits. But if you're watching your money and you are only able to go and buy a few baits, do your homework before you go and buy them. That's going to do it for the close-ups, guys. Let's go back to the main camera. Okay, let's talk about the time of year, because it is quite important when it comes to medium diving crankbaits. Time of year is a subjective thing again for this particular bait. So if you live somewhere that has no ice, for me, I would be throwing a medium running crankbait for a short period pre-spawn before those fish start moving up and looking for spawning areas. So from kind of right at the end of winter to just before they start moving for the spawn, so that part of the pre-spawn. And then post-spawn, directly post-spawn, from the post-spawn all the way through the summer. And then deeper into the summer, you're probably going to have to go to depending where you live and what the depth of your lakes is, to a deeper running crankbait, and then fall, and then just the first part of the winter. So if you live somewhere where there is ice, from the time you have ice off to just before they move up, and then the same as for areas that have no ice. It's a kind of an all year round bait. My favorite time of year to throw it would be in the pre-spawn, and then probably again post-spawn for a couple of weeks before the fish move out deeper, and then again in the fall when the fish start to move back from their summer haunts into kind of that medium depth water where you can specifically target them with the medium running crankbait. Medium running crankbaits are for all species of bass, and probably all species of fish really. When I've been in America, I've caught crappies on them, I've caught big bluegill on them, all the species of bass I've caught on them. I caught a catfish on one. What else have I caught on one? I think that's about it. In South Africa, the two species of, all the bass species that are in South Africa, and then a lot of the different tilapia species, or for my South African brothers, the Kerper species. They love crankbaits. They're just as predatory as bass are, so they love crankbaits. You can catch them on crankbaits. Got a lot of South African barbel, or the South African version of a catfish on them, loads of them. And I've even caught tigerfish on them. For my American brothers, those that haven't been blessed to go to Africa, tigerfish, whole different category of fish. It's like a striped bass with teeth. Okay, good. What about weather? I'm not sure that weather plays a massive role running crankbaits, particularly medium running crankbaits, because you're kind of fishing it from that 8 foot to kind of 16 foot where fish are less affected. I'm not saying they are not affected. I'm saying less affected by weather. It's not a fish that you would fish up shallows where if you have a massive weather event, the fish just vacate or stop biting. So it's one of those baits that you can maybe rely on a little bit more if you have a cold front or a different type of weather event. There are different crankbaits for different scenarios, like we discussed in the close-ups. So there's something that you can use for all the different water temperatures. And I think maybe that's the thing it should be measured by, is more the water temperature than weather, as to what that may dictate what crankbait you want to decide on. So just, you can rewind back to the close-ups where we discussed the different types of crankbait bodies that you get, and that would be partly what you would use in the different colder weather conditions, or warmer weather conditions for that matter. So that kind of covers the weather and the times of year. They are super effective in the fall. It's one of my favorite baits to throw in the fall. I have had very good success with them pre-spawn, particularly in lakes that have a lot of rock in them. I don't know what the correlation is between the rock and crankbaits. It just seems to work. I don't question it, I just throw it. And then, but my favorite time of year to throw them is in the fall of the year, or the autumn of the year, for my South African brothers. Yeah. Good. What about the retrieve? The retrieve is very much tied into the system that we discussed at the beginning of the video and in the close-ups. So I feel that if you are targeting fish in a certain depth of water, and the obvious way to find those fish would obviously be using your sonar, your fish finder. Use a bait that runs to that depth. So if you're targeting fish that are close to the bottom, a good way to get those fish to react to the bait is obviously to make that bait deflect off the bottom, whether it be rock or timber, whatever the case is. If you're fishing in 12 foot of water and you've used that crankbait and tested it, let's use a Rapala DT14 for argument's sake. You know that on 12-pound line, your DT14 runs 12 foot or slightly over 12 foot. The bottom consists of hard bottom. There's rock there, there's some shale, maybe some gravel and mud or clay. You want that bait plowing, hitting, plowing, deflecting, bouncing, creating little mud trail behind it, whatever, hitting the rocks, making a noise to get a better reaction out of the fish. You want it to look like food to that fish. So your retrieve would be wind the crankbait down to depth, sweep it till it hit, when you feel it hits the bottom, wind, sweep, doof, 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 doof on the bottom. Take up the slack, sweep. You want to keep it in the strike zone for as long as possible. The caveat to that is that if the fish want a bait that is moving faster, if you know that they are feeding on pelagic baitfish, baitfish that live offshore that don't stop moving, and you know that the fish are close to the bottom but they are coming up and busting fish on the surface and going back down, you southern guys know what I'm talking about, then I would use something like a DT10 in that same 12 foot of water, which you know is not going to get anywhere near the bottom, but you can wind it a lot faster because you want it to be very erratic, but you don't want it to touch the bottom because the bait fish are not on the bottom at that time. So when it's, like I said to you earlier, it is a system, it's very situational. You need to be aware what the bass are doing in that lake at that time of year to help you make smart choices when you decide what baits you want to use. As a general rule, I want to hit the bottom. If I'm fishing a medium running crankbait, 9 times out of 10, I want it to hit the bottom. And that's why we keep harping on about the lure retrievers. If you are not getting stuck now and then, guys, it's not like the square bill crankbait where you should be getting stuck quite a large portion of the time if you're fishing in the right areas. With a medium running crankbait, if you are scared that you're going to get stuck, do not throw this bait. Don't throw it. Rather, disregard this technique entirely and fish a soft plastic or a jig or something through the same areas. It's going to get stuck. Make peace with it. But I'm telling you, once you learn how to use a lure retriever effectively, getting stuck is just part of the deal. When you pick up that cranking rod, this hand is picking up the lure retriever and putting it on the deck next to you. It's a part of life, guys. Getting stuck is a good thing. It means there's some type of cover or structure in the area where you are fishing. And this is something that we can relate to all types of bass fishing. Is it annoying? Hell yes, it's annoying because it's taking up time in your fishing day. But what it means is there's something on the bottom that those fish can relate to, that they can ambush from, that they can live next to or under. When you're putting lures around that type of crap on the bottom, there's a very good chance there's going to be a bass living there. So make peace with it. It's going to be part of it. What about the bite? Bites with most types of crankbaits, there's only really 2 bites that I've experienced. One is that you're winding and it's just that and immediate pressure on the rod. Thump, 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 thump of the fish shaking its head, trying to get rid of those treble hooks. And the other type of bite with a crankbait that is where you're winding the crankbait, boof, boof, boof on the bottom, whatever the case is, and it just goes slack. It's like someone has cut the lure off your line. That's what it feels like. It feels like you've been winding that crankbait, doing everything correctly, banging it off stuff, and the next minute it feels like someone's just cut the lure off your line. And you wind it up and you go, what the heck? Carry on winding, and all of a sudden you take up the slack in your line, and the line's over there, and you cast over there, and that fish is going at 100 miles an hour, because when it hit the bait, it was coming straight towards you, and then it changed direction and just knocked slack in your line. Both of those, guys, get the slack out of the line and just lean into the fish. You can give it a little pump like that. You do not need to give it the steel. Just wind into the fish and a good pump like that, 1 or 2 pumps, just to make sure that those hooks are set. That's all it needs. It doesn't need any more than that. Okay. This is not rocket science, guys. If you get your rod, reel, line, and particular bait, everything dialed in, this will be a technique that you can keep up there, or keep the rod in the rod locker 12 months of the year. Whenever you're going to go on the water, there's going to be an opportunity where you can throw a medium running crankbait. It is an incredibly versatile lure. The only thing, obviously, they don't like is grass. It's a no-no. But if you look on your sonar or your graph, and you can see that the grass or the weed is growing from the bottom to 4 foot off the bottom, and you're in 15 foot of water, you know that if you pick up something like a DT10 or a lure that runs 10 foot, and you fire it out as far as you can and wind it over the top of that weed, the only time that thing is going to hit the weed is if you've got 1 or 2 strands sticking up past that 4 foot bed of weed, and you just tick that bait. You just tick it off those strands of weed or leaves of weed, because you're running at 10 foot and the weed is 4 foot off the bottom. It's just underneath your bait. Those fish are going to come up out of that weed and eat it. That is when fishing a medium running crankbait over weed can be super, super, super effective. Does that scenario present itself very often? Probably not. But keep it there in the memory bank for if you do come across something like that. So the final thing to talk about here is, how do I go out and buy crankbaits? And as we've stressed through this whole video, is the importance of the system, like we've discussed. But the most important thing is you need to know what depth that crankbait of your choice is going to run on what pound line, whatever you decide to use, whether it be the mono or the fluorocarbon, whatever it is, you need to know before you throw that bait what depth that bait is going to run to. And that will take a lot of the frustration out of it. There are so many good companies that make crankbaits now. Hundreds and hundreds of companies that make very good crankbaits now. That for me to say, use that one, use that, it's be stupid. My advice to you is, look to the companies that have been doing it a long time. I'm not saying that the newer companies are no good, but those older companies have been in business as long as they have, because the products work well and people use them and have continued to use them, and those companies have made improvements to their baits and stuff solely based on the fact that they make crankbaits. So, a few examples. Rapala is the obvious one. They have something to cover every single scenario, and you can purchase those baits, I promise you, based on what is written on the box. If they say that thing is a DT10, DT dives to 10, it will dive to 10 foot on 10 pound fluorocarbon. It may even get there on 12 pound fluorocarbon if you're using very good fluorocarbon with a thin diameter. So Rapala, Bomber, it's gone through different iterations and been owned by a lot of different companies. But Bomber has made crankbaits from the get-go. Bagleys, different type of crankbait. A lot of them are made out of balsa. It's got a different type of action. They've been in business a long time. Very similar materials to the Rapala. Noticing any similarities here, guys? On the box, it will tell you what depth that crankbait dives to. This helps you guys and makes it so much easier for when you are choosing baits to fish specific scenarios. Does it mean you'll have to have a few different types of crankbaits? Hell yes. You're going to end up with boxes of crankbaits. That's the point. It's so much fun because you'll get onto one brand, find all the ones in that brand that you like. Those will be your staples. You'll have a box of those. Then you'll go to another brand and you'll do exactly the same thing. And your fishing partner will think you're mental because you come on board and you've got 5 boxes of medium running crankbaits, and you can tell him to leg it. When you get to that spot and you dive in that looking for that one particular bait, come out, tie it on, and start thumping them. Because that one bait 2 years ago, you caught that fish off this one rock on that color bait. He who dives with the most lures wins, guys. That's the rules. It's an official rule of bass fishing. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of beautiful baits on the market. Thousands of them. The things that you want to consider, make sure that the construction of the lip or the bill is good. Look where it goes into the actual bait. Is it firmly glued or fused into the actual bait? Because that's what takes the pounding every time when you're winding it. That's what's going to take the pounding. That's the first thing. Look at the construction of the body. When you look at the crankbait like this, is it even on both sides? If it's not even on both sides, it will not swim properly. I promise you. There's nothing that you can do adjusting the angle of the line tie, putting split rings on, it won't swim properly. That's why I recommend buying known brands, because those baits when they come out the molds or when they come from the machines, the body shaping machines, they are all the same. Tried and tested. Colors. Prevalent bait fish species in your lake. The colors of the crawdads in your lake. Go back and look at the bass biology videos. It will help you understand how to choose colors for the bait fish or the prey species in your lake. If you had to say to me, you're only allowed to have 3 colors of crankbait, I'd have one that looked like a bluegill. I'd have something like a chartreuse blueback. And I'd probably have a white and silver of some description. That would be my 3 choices. But because all of us live in such vastly different places with different types of bait fish and prey species. Remember, guys, we're not only talking about bait fish here. Those are the 3 that I would pick to start with, to start your journey with. Hooks are super important. Super important. We spoke before, I think it was one of the top water videos. I said, keep a small box of treble hooks, different size treble hooks in your backpack or on the boat. Because when hooks on crankbaits go dull, remember, guys, you're winding them through all kinds of stuff on the bottom, rocks and gravel and clay and all that. It blunts the hooks, and also catching fish on them blunts the hooks. So when you tie that bait on, just run the hook across your thumbnail. Each one of the hooks on the 2 trebles. Make sure that hook sticks, the hook point sticks, and it's still sharp. If not, either take a file to it and just sharpen them up a little bit, or change it out. We've explained how to do that in a previous video. Super important, guys. Super, super important. And then, once you find a bait that works for you, I'm telling you this from my heart, guys. Once you find a bait and a color that works for you, go out, when you can afford it, go out and buy a few more, exactly the same ones, and stick them in a cupboard somewhere. Because when lure companies update colors, models, maybe whatever, and they decide They're not going to go heavy on the production of that particular color or model, and you cannot get it, and that's your favorite color, it will drive you scatty. And it is one of the reasons that I started painting my own baits. It drove me insane. In South Africa, where I come from, it was not always easy. The tackle shops couldn't always get what we wanted. I think we were kind of at the bottom of the pecking order as far as when countries are allocated baits or whatever the case was. And I'd go out, and because I struggled with crankbaiting when I first started bass fishing, I'd finally find a bait that worked for me, go out, catch a bunch of fish on it, get it stuck, lose it, and go, that's okay, I'll just go tomorrow and I'll go and buy another one. Go to the shop, walk in, that's what I'm looking for, we don't have any in stock, or that's the new model, the colors, some subtle color change in the color, buy the thing, it doesn't work, I lose my mind. So that is one of the reasons I started painting my own baits. So that's medium running crankbaits, guys. It's a bit of a long topic and one that you need to think about really hard, and it's like I said, that's why I left it kind of towards the end of the baits. There's a couple more different ones coming up as well that are going to be the same. I recommend that everybody throw crankbaits of some sort. It's one of those things you need to have. Moving baits are, although they can sometimes be trickier to fish than saying going to the jig or going to a soft plastic or whatever the case might be, there is definitely a time during every single day where fish will chase a moving bait. I'm going to say that again. There is a time during every single day where fish will chase a moving bait. And guys, you want those fish that are chasing. Fish that are chasing are easier to catch than fish that are sedentary. I hope that this has been a help. I hope that this helps you to make some decisions about what type of crankbaits and rods and things that you want to buy. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining us, guys.